Okay, so we've covered the good guys, the Toxic Crusaders from the cartoon series based off the Troma movie, The Toxic Avenger. I did say the good guys looked awesome. They managed to work some great textures and colours into the line, really cranking that slimy, oozing feel. So in saying that, I think the bad guys here look just as awesome. Guess I'll start with the boss of this ragtag group of smog-obsessed pollution bandits. All the way from planet Smogula, we have Dr. Killem. Actually, he is one of my least favourite characters. It feels like we have a real mixing pot of different villain looks. Streaked black hair, a cape, the suit, the colours, the evil eyes, it's all just a bit too cliche for me. That's fine, it was a kid's cartoon, but we got some really awesome designs for some of the other figures, and I'm not a fan of cloth on the action figures, but in the cartoon, Dr. Killem had an awesome looking breathing apparatus, a bit like a church organ with some massive pipes. These things have been toned down somewhat here for the action figure as well. The Doctor does come with his own rifle and a grenade. I guess he had to have some weapons, and it does look a little bit alien, a bit different from the cobbled together look we got in the rest of the line as far as the rifle goes. But Dr. Killem wasn't really a hands-on guy. Surprisingly, he outsourced most of the dirty work to his henchmen, so it's a bit strange for him to have weapons, but overall the figure's okay, but it's just not one of my favourite, and having so many weapons doesn't really make sense. But speaking of henchmen, we have Psycho, the oracle who could predict the future, often telling the audience how the show is going to end. He's a big, round figure, which does cause some gaps around his hips, but I really like how they played up the gross factor for the figure with slime dripping out of his mouth. It really helps give this straight character a lot more personality for the action figure. So Psycho comes with a saw, I guess for working in the lab, a little pistol thing, a glow-in-the-dark boot attachment, as well as the helmet he wears occasionally. For this figure, I am missing one of the pink tubes for his head, as well as one of the bigger tubes for the back of his arm. But I did kind of go ahead and add my own tube anyway. I do really like that half mechanical look that Psycho has going. I really enjoyed that look as a kid. It showed up in a few cartoons and I was always a really big fan of it, so it's cool to see it here in action figure form. So we don't have as many villains here overall as the good guys, but we did get the Radiation Ranger, something of an army builder. Get a bunch of these guys together and watch the Toxic Crusaders tear them apart. I was saying for a lot of the first video that the sculpting on the weapons is just insanely awesome, and finally, I can say that for a bad guy. The Radiation Ranger genuinely has some great sculpting on the shield and the gun here, and honestly, I love the colours overall. Reminds me a lot of Psycho from the Earthworm Jim line, again by Playmates. So the Radiation Rangers were mostly these clone type characters, mass-produced bad guys that Dr. Killem sent out in squads. So there's not much character and personality to work with, but I really like the stylized look to the figure, with the hunched posture and everything. My Radiation Ranger isn't complete, he's missing one of the hoses in the backpacks, but I ended up just blue tacking a hose in place. He did come with one glow-in-the-dark accessory. I believe it's this thing, and I'm guessing it attaches to the backpack, but again, not certain about that. Let me know in the comments if you know. But talking about glow-in-the-dark, Bonehead, the last villain, is literally covered in the stuff. Bonehead has this skeletal theme going, and he is so radioactive that he literally glows in the dark. This has to be my favourite character out of the entire line. Just a really cool character from the show, and he makes an awesome figure. Really great combination of colours, paint applications, and the overall tattiness of this roadhog. Really love the tyre track details on the jacket as well. I also find for such a lean figure that he overcompensates a bit when it comes to the weaponry. He's got two separate guns, both moulded from glow-in-the-dark plastic. Tons of detail, especially like the bones moulded into the shoulder brace for the weapon. Again, really cobbled together, but unlike a lot of the other Toxic Crusader figures, Bonehead doesn't have that slimy gross out factor. His final weapon is a knife with a big nail through the handle. And he's got one more accessory, a gas mask, still glow in the dark, and It's another accessory that works really well with the character, especially if you plan on teaming him up with his hog, the Smaug Cycle. Honestly, love the look of this thing. I'm a big fan of the Toxic Crusader vehicles, as I mentioned in the last video with the Toxic Crusader Skater, and I really enjoy their overall look. The Smaug Cycle is all about putting out the maximum amount of pollution. Again, we got some awesome artwork on the front of the box with Bonehead riding the Smaug Cycle. I really love the color combinations here, and again, there's a real charm to the Toxic Crusader figures, and I'm super stoked that I got the Smaug Cycle. It was actually, I wasn't planning on getting the whole line, to be honest. I was only planning on picking up Bonehead and the Smaug Cycle just because of how awesome they looked. And I was going to tie it in with the review I did for the Genesis game, but I went all out and picked up the entire line in one lot, except the vehicles and the loose Toxie figure. So this figure and the bike really inspired me to complete the collection somewhat. The bike itself does have some really cool details. Again, just like the Crusader Skater, there's no projectile weapons or lots of extra accessories at all, but I think the overall color scheme, all the tubes and all the details on the bike itself really helped sell the figure for me. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like the cartoon series, you can check them all out on the Troma channel right now for free, so it's definitely worth going back and seeing all your favourite figures in action, I guess. Like I mentioned in this review, I've actually done a review for the Genesis game, which was a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's not the best game, but it certainly has a lot of charm from the show, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan. If you like the show, please feel free to like, comment, even subscribe if you're that brave. I've already covered the good guys in another video, so if you haven't watched that already, feel free to check that out, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers guys.